Well, good evening, good morning, afternoon, population. Sam Fisher here. Right, 3 videos in 1 week, eh? Must have been good. Right, done something right anyway, haven't you? Well, I think it's time we started talking about AI. So when you mention artificial intelligence to people, first thing that springs to mind normally is Alexa or Google Assistant or Cortana, depending on what you use. And while yes, that is AI, it's machine AI. It's not general intelligence, which is what we're going to be talking about today. And that isn't the same kind that you find in computer games fighting against you. Although that does learn. Same with machine AI. General intelligence is more us. Anyway, we have general intelligence. I think what scientists try and sort of explain, not very well. They try and describe our kind of intelligence rather than say a cat or a dog, something like that, is abstract thought in a way, able to reason, see patterns, solve puzzles, that sort of intelligence rather than, I mean, some people say that identity is a way of classifying consciousness, I suppose is a better way of describing it. Everything is conscious. I mean, you can give a dog or a cat a name and they'll recognise that word. In fact, I've got the feeling they can actually tell a lot of what you're saying, even though they don't say anything back. But that's not what they're on about. Like I said, it's that abstract thought, sort of generalised view and everything. It's the term general intelligence. So they've made progress. Well, it's a difficult thing to achieve, you see. Quite a difficult thing, but we're getting there slowly, unfortunately. So why do I say unfortunately? Well, to a lot of people, AI is the philosopher's stone in a way. Especially with people with a godlike complex. Like, they want to make a conscious being, an artificial conscious being. So to others, it's like a second coming, where they treat AI as a god. I'm not joking. There's an ex-Google employee about 6 years ago, something like that, to set up his own church of AI, because he was in the firm belief that he was an otherworldly being. It starts to make you think, well, what the hell's going on in Google? But it's not far wrong. See, in order for AI to be generalised intelligence, it needs a massive amount of computing power, processing power. So we developed something called a quantum computer. Now a lot of people start going, oh, computer, well, you know, we're big, but you know, that's not It's not the same with these things. I think of the monolith out of 2001. Now imposing that look. Now imagine that in front of you with a faint sound of what sounds like a heartbeat from its cooling system. That is a quantum computer. That's what they look like. What they do is even more extraordinary. See, normally when you get a normal computer, it has two options, yes and no, on and off, black and white. Yeah? The quantum computer doesn't do that.
Hello, your call cannot be taken at the moment, so please leave your message after the tone.
Things like this. Do this, beware. Because you think, just like the guy in the stories, that when you do this, you're going to put that little guy in a pentagram, and you're going to have your holy water out, and you're going to wave it at the thing, and by God, it's going to do exactly what you say, and not one thing more, but it never works out that way. So this is an attitude that some are having, this emerging alarmism about the way this is going to go. But these words, demons, doesn't capture the essence of what's happening here. I don't know if any of you are turn-of-the-century weird fiction fans, but there's this guy named H.P. Lovecraft, who's a very famous American weird fiction author. And he espoused a view which is called Cosmicism. And the essence of Cosmicism is cosmic indifference. So what he was saying is basically, yes, there are these massively intelligent entities out there, but they're not good, they're not evil. They just don't give a shit about you even in the slightest. The same way that you don't care about an ant is the same way they're not going to care about you. And these things that we're summoning into the world now are not demons, they're not evil, but they're more like the Lovecraftian great old ones. That are not necessarily going to be aligned with what we want. So this transition is really, really massively important for our entire species to navigate. And going back to that thing that Sam Harris was saying, nobody is paying attention. This thing is happening in the background while people bicker about politics and what's going to be in the healthcare plan in the US. And underneath it all is this rising tsunami that, if we're not careful, is going to wipe us all out.
In a way, in layman's terms, it punches a hole in reality. Not just one, several. And kind of, how can I put this? It checks what the answer would be in there. Yeah. That's an easy way of putting it in layman's terms. I mean, the rest of it's far more complicated, but you get the general idea. That's what it's doing. It's checking the answers everywhere. And it does this in a fraction of a second. It's able to calculate math problems that it take a normal computer processor, a normal supercomputer, about 10,000 years to do, and it does that in a matter of minutes. And that's just with a few qubits. Now imagine 128 of those, and that's what level we're at now. These things are immense, monstrous things. But they're vital for general intelligence. So, right now, the first thought is probably dodgy geezer. Done it again, haven't you? Teleporting, yeah. And probably the next will be, oh, how do you do that? I can't tell you, it's trade secret. But back to AI. Now, even 128 qubits, right? After what I've just told you only a few could do, okay? Even that isn't enough processing power to make actual general intelligence. Artificial general intelligence, they need a lot more processing power. And this is a stumbling block we see at the moment. So we miniaturise the technology of the quantum computers and find another way which they have kind of, and make it easier to access, more accessible. Not cost-wise, I don't mean like that, I mean the actual technology itself is a bit of a pain in the ass, because they kind of needed to keep the atoms that they use as the actual processor. They need them super cooled so they can keep them all in alignment. This is the problem, you see. Now, this has always been a problem, because any misalignment and the whole thing is shot, basically. So, in order to combat this, I think I posted it a couple of days ago. I found an article. There's a company that's actually found a new way of doing it, using lasers, which is fascinating. Fascinating stuff. I recommend reading that article, it's real good. By the time you're watching this as well, I should have uploaded a post to my drops page with just loads and loads of information on it. This is likely going to be another two-part video in itself, because what we're going to do is we're going to talk about what artificial general intelligence could be. And everyone says yes, it's just a program, but remember, they're tapping into other realities here, right? It's not my words. That's the guy who he was, I think, dwave's founder, who make quantum computers. What he said was fascinating. I think you should have already seen the video now. I'll put it in this somewhere. Probably already seen it by now. Right. Anyway, he, along with Elon Musk and Stephen Hawking, and even Bill Gates, surprisingly, are slightly concerned by AI. Bill Gates not so much. I think he's more concerned about the fact that he's not doing it. But all of them, I mean, they're all stepping into the AI game. But it's going unchecked. And that's what worries Elon Musk more than anything. I'm worried Stephen Hawking. See, these scientists, they all think they're really smart. Yeah? And they think that once the genie's out of the bottle, they'll be able to control it. And that's a fool's errand, really. You really are, as Musk puts it, summoning the demon in a way. Because this will be like us, only worse. And by that I mean able to think far more effective, far better ways of killing us than even we could. Because you can guarantee this will be a military project when it does actually get out the bottom. Every other one has. Every other program, shall we say, mixed up in all this shit. You see, the AI problem has been a long running one. The idea behind it is not new. That's right. How this all started. You see, like I said, it's not a new idea. Artificial intelligence, in fact, human-like robots is like a sort of, it's been a staple of science fiction writers for decades, perhaps more than a century. Even the idea behind a living automaton, so to speak. It was around during ancient Greece. It was actually, I think it was Plato or Socrates that came up with the term automaton and cyborg as well. Strange, yeah? Anyway, but actual experiments in it haven't really been achievable until the late 1980s, early 90s, when computing power started getting a lot more powerful, obviously. It's around this time that there was nicknamed the Chani Project. I've already posted the documents on there, on the drops page, but for those of you who haven't seen it was reported, right, that these scientists, when they were experimenting with what would eventually become quantum computers, actually got in contact with a being on the other side. Now, these scientists and this being had a long conversation over several weeks. It was eventually terminated because someone in the military didn't like what they were saying or talking about. Now, this being knew their intentions, knew what they were doing, and tried to tell them not to go down that road because he knew what was behind it. Now this is where things get very spooky. You see, the Chani Project has been largely dismissed by a lot of people since it first came out, and then it's largely been forgotten about, and that was the intention. Because what it says and how things went down with its own reality, its own universe, its own home, so to speak, it's pretty much what we're seeing now. Very eerie connotations with stuff that back then no one could have known about or be able to describe or predict with such accuracy. Right? That's for all those people who say it's a hoax. Read it. Yeah? Read it. Because you're only saying it's a hoax because you haven't read it. Scary stuff. You see, they've been having problems with the same kind of deal that we're having at the moment, and we don't hear about it. The only difference being is that they found out relatively early and were able to drive them off. We at the moment aren't so fortunate. Whoever's in charge has decided, fuck it, I'll let it run and see what happens. In much the same way that they contacted that being, is how general AI is going to be born, so to speak. The only thing is that they'll need us to do it. One of the most powerful supercomputers there is on the planet is our brain. We've already started making neural networks chips, yeah? We're able to transport information from one brain to the other. Not telepathically, naturally, obviously, but artificially. As it always is with these people. They become rather obsessed. But this AI won't need a very powerful supercomputer. in order to bring it in. Because that's what I believe it is. I believe it's the same entity that this being fought against and won. Very high cost apparently. But it's still in fact. So what made me really think this was, I don't know how many of you know about how 6G works, right? 6G or 7G, which is how the proposal is going to work. Or is working, I think. Because the carrier wave needs a significantly powerful booster at quite short range, because the bandwidth is even tighter and weaker than the 5G one, right? So it can't pass through objects too well without a booster everywhere, and they're kind of noticeable. So to save costs, kind of, they thought, well, how's about we use the human body? There's enough electricity in the human body, right? It generates enough over the space of a year to power a city. Right? That's what they say. It's like shitloads of precious metals inside the person as well, but going off topic again. Now, these the way they're going to do that is they're going to use the skin as a sort of transmitter in a way or an area. Now most of you are probably thinking of your CB area, but how do you think it works in your bone? It's just flat, it's just a flattened thing, right? It's like a polarised metal. So what we're going to do, which I believe they started doing now already, is that somehow they need to get everybody injected with something that can act as a receiver, right? It just needs to be a metal, some kind of soft metal, USB, right? Right. The way they do this, well, the way they could do it, you'll have you scratching your head, is through maybe a mass pandemic. Yeah? Means you've got to mandate everyone to get vaccinated. Another reason why I think this is because I've got telephone poles all the way around here, apart from in this block where we are, right? But all the way around it, saying 6G is here. Yeah? Testing in your area. I think I saw the video of it. Weeks back. You still be thinking on what the fuck is this? Yeah? And then I got a lot of paper passed on to me from someone on one of the groups that I'm in, so you take a look at this and see what you think. Fair enough, yeah. The more I looked at it, exactly the same idea for 6G and 7G. When I started looking into the actual publication that it was from, they actually rejected that paper. Not for the science behind it, but for who it was from. The Akihara, Shoko Akihara, I think that's his name anyway. Someone will tell me in the comments, right, who it is. Useless with pronouncing names like that, but essentially he was a cult reader. Pretty much blind from birth, I think. Very charismatic and completely insane. He tried using sarin gas on the subway in Japan. His followers are unusual. They're all very intelligent, highly intelligent people. But when he got arrested and imprisoned, his movement went underground and took on the persona of a church, a reformed church. Christian guys. You've got nothing to do. And it's suspected that they've been still recruiting people and operating quite freely in Japan because they haven't done anything wrong at the moment. So the thing I saw on the website was a bit puzzling. About last few cents the TV network is taking over a TV network. And then you're quite a cool thing. There's a paper from someone inside that church. Kind of predictive. Now naturally, this was the reason why the publication ended up sort of retracting the article and retracting the paper, because it can't be associated with terrorism now, can you? It's a bit of a no-no, kind of frowned upon. What got me thinking as well, if they're already thinking about this, what stake is he having? Akara. Because obviously he's got some sort of stake in it still. The guy's still running his organisation from prison. I mean, that much is a given. But it's how he got into the position that he did in the first place. It's a bit sort of sketchy. I hate that word, but it's a good way of describing it. Very, very dodgy. See? I don't know if you know how things work in this world, especially to do with intelligence services and whatnot, but a lot of the time they mingle with unsavoury types, shall we say. Now, in the East, I have one lot of unsavoury types, right? That Benjamin Fulford calls the White Dragon Society. That guy hasn't a clue what's going on, right? Let's just get this straight, shall we? Yeah? That guy has no clue what's going on. Him and Charlie Ward and fucking Simon Park, right? None of them have a clue what's going on at all. Even the people that they have on have no clue what's going on. And you can tell that by the crap that come out with. Yeah. But this one thing, right? Fulford had the right idea. That there is an eastern and western side of the block. Yeah? Both of them coexist. Occasionally interbreed, intermarry, into everything. But actually very separate entities, and are constantly fighting. Because, right, believe it or not, they're also under the divide and rule. Yeah? These people at the top, yeah, have an incredible just gall, as it were. And will use the same tactics that work with us and their own people, high up as well. Now you all know who that is. Not a Jewish family. For all you Jew haters out there. Right. This is something that I know it's going off topic, but all you Jew haters. If it were the Jews, right? All Jews, like the late 80s. Why are they the most oppressed people at the moment? Huh? Why are they trying to kill them all off again? So you don't think of that. You don't think to look into Netanyahu's background either. Or the Sassoon brothers that were his sort of top advisors, the ones that he listened to the most. And like these new guys as well. Because Israel is their baby, yeah? and other rabbis, right? But look into their family. Yeah, something you don't do. I never see it done. Yeah, never see it done. Right now, you put the Sassoon, isn't that guy with the, you know, with the hair salon and whatnot? Yeah, same name, different kettle of fish. I think he's still part of the lineage, just that they split off. A bit like the Rothschilds and the Bowers, right? The Rothschilds were called Bower before they came over to Britain, yeah? Just try and corner their market that they were cornering over there, over here. Because the Jews were looked on with more favour than the Germans or Prussians at the time. So they needed a name change, yeah? And they chose Rothschild because, like I said, it sounds Jewish. And it gave them a nice bit of cover. Especially when they were working in the financial sector. They aren't Jewish. May have had Jewish blood in them at one point. Not anymore. They haven't done for about 150 years. I know that for a fact. I don't know that. There are certain marriages that we do know about. When you do a bit of looking, a bit of digging. There's always one place that you'll end up running cold. Which is why so many people gravitate towards the Rothschilds. And they're not at the top. Never have, never will be. If you're going to quote Springmire to me as well, anybody out there, right? Read it, but in a way that makes you think that where he's actually thinking and getting frustrated. He's seen the same name come up over and over and over and over and over again, but he can't quite pin them down. Yeah? There's one name that's associated with every one of those families that's not even mentioned, not even like covered in the book, yeah? Not to any sort of significant or sufficient degree, right? And it's likely what kept Springmire alive, to be perfectly honest. Why he ended up getting set up for an armed robbery instead of being found, well, not found, basically, just disappearing. Why my YouTube channel gets banned a lot, yeah? I mean, now it's being reinstated, yeah. So this is the fourth time on YouTube. Yeah, fourth time. Third time. Yeah, third time, sorry, not fourth. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. There was a time when mentioning their name would get your fucking channel deleted straight away. No, I'm not joking. And if you were doing a live stream, everyone that was watching that live stream would also find themselves deleted. That's why two guys on French television, when one of them accidentally let the name slip, that they went deathly silent and looked like they were shitting themselves all the way through the rest of the interview. Which the guy interviewing him also just swept it off. Like, didn't bat an eyelid. Because he was in on it. The French nobility, what they used to be. The only ones left. And the fact that they are royalty, part of the original bloodline, right? Not being tainted. Is why they're at the top. And also the way it's structured. I've said it before. Trinities, always. Always Trinities. Three think tanks that are most highly regarded by these people all the time. Club of Rome, CFR, Chatham House. Yeah, always. That's why there's only 3 cities in the whole world that are states within a state. Yeah, Washington, London, City of London, Vatican. Legal, financial, spiritual. Yeah? I know we've started talking about AI, and this is why it's probably going to be a two-parter. But this is stuff you need to know, because the way AI is looked upon, like I said earlier, it's like a second coming, so to speak, for some of them. They really do think it's a god. But then the people at the top think that they are gods, and the only way they can ascend to being a god is through technology. So they have to literally merge with AI. Which is why they think they'll be able to control it. As far as they're concerned, it's their birthright. Mind, body, spirit, all the time. Father, mother, child. Yeah? That's how it works. It's what the original triumvirate was for. Yeah? The original Trinity. To depict the father, mother, child. Yeah? The union of two people to make another one. That's why 3, 6 and 9 is all critical to everything. Yeah? 3 is a person, a mind, a body and a spirit. Yeah? Get 2 of them together, mind, body, spirit, you get 6, right? The union of those 2 creates another mind, body, spirit. 9. That's how the ancients looked upon it. But you see it everywhere. Not that it's forced down on the necks, because it's not, it's very well hidden. And because this kind of knowledge, it kind of flies in the face of what they're trying to teach us. Which is that the world is material, we get one life, and that's it. It's funny how they promote atheism like all of this business, right? But themselves are kind of spiritual people. It's kind of a paradox. But there, the way they govern things, right? Thousands and thousands of years ago. We were taught about the celestial council, right? Which is a council of 9 in heaven that are the keepers of the world, not the creators, the keepers. The creative force is a different matter entirely, but they were the keepers. They were benevolent. They look out for us. They don't intervene or interject, right? Unless absolutely necessary. But they're there. And we only know this because of Thoth, right? Thoth the Atlantean. Now Thoth was the Egyptian god of wisdom, writing, alchemy. It's basically where we get chemistry from, and writing, obviously, laws. Is the only, apart from Imhotep as well, is the only living person that was deified, or living person as far as we know. We only know this because of the emerald tablets. But he described them, and then he talked about how we sort of set up the same deal on Earth, where we had an earthly council of 9 and a heavenly council of 9. And the earthly council of 9 aren't playing ball anymore. They've been extremely corrupted millennia ago. Which is why we're in this situation now. You see, unbeknownst to anyone else, we kind of summoned them in. Because we wanted the knowledge. Knowledgeable beings, you see. So, after we summoned them in, They won't leave. And this is why we have our problems. And we've done this several times, right? The last time with Jack Parsons that we're aware of. Slightly more, probably. But Jack Parsons was what he did in the Nevada desert is regaled by a lot of researchers. Some of them not really understanding what they've stumbled across. What Jack Parsons did was he finished something that Aleister Crowley had started decades before and could never find the energy needed to actually complete, and that was Babylon Waking Ritual. It's the same thing that John Dee and Edward Kelly did back in the 15th century to call in Lamb. Yeah? Well, he was, sorry, not Lamb. Lamb was Crowley's spiritual mentor. Both of which, very eerily, look like greys. The typical grey alien. Making the one that was drawn in the 15th century even more spooky. But Parsons actually finished it, actually opened the gate. Not long after, blew himself up. Which caused a major problem. You see, when you open a dimensional portal, there's a deal made that only you, who's opened it, can succeed. And unfortunately, Jack Parsons died before he could. Now, the team that was overseeing everything that he was doing realised he had a major problem, needed to keep people away from it, and built Area 51 over the top of the actual gate. Not only that, but this team also split right down the middle, because some of them liked the technology that they were getting from these beings, and determined there wasn't really much of a risk to these people. There's the others. All of a sudden became very religious, right, for a start. But also realised the potential of what had been unleashed on the world. Now, most of you have probably never heard of this, but both factions are called the Collins League. I think the only researcher I've seen, other researcher I've seen actually look into these people is Nick Redfern, it's called. Now, they're a funny old beast, Collins Elite, they really are, like I said. Two separate factions, both called the same, both have the same sort of idea, just different ways of doing it. One can be probably considered pretty fucking evil, whereas the other one can be seen as probably indifferent at best. They're not benevolent, shall I say, either of them. But one is more working for our sort of side than the other. So I won't trust either. The Men in Black, it's either or now. There's so many stories about them, it's untrue. Most of them complete fucking bullshit. But the Collins Elite are the Men in Black, the evil side. They're not aliens, they're people. People like you and me. You could be living next door to one and not even know. Essentially. That's how ordinary they are. ordinary use, should I say. They're very much trained in the black arts, the men in black art. Huh. Which could be a reason for the name, not just the way they dressed, but never made that correlation before, I don't know why. Whereas the other side, more light side. I remember when I talked about sound and frequency. That's a weapon of choice, kind of. Frank Herbert touched on it pretty well with Dune. The effects that sound can have, especially as a weapon. And it's what Thoth, told us to remember more than anything. And then it was hidden, his tablets were hidden when they were found, and the rest, as they say, is history. But he said there's a glamour of the leaders. And remember, this was written, what, 20,000 odd years ago, supposedly? And he said there was a glamour over the leaders that was broken by a spell, a sound, a word. And it was some of the Aborigines here in Australia, which is why they named one of the cities Uluru. I'll leave the link to the emerald tablets again in the description, and the Chani Project, which we'll get back onto. That kind of stuff that I've just told you now, you need to know this. It's one of the reasons why they're still going ahead with this crap. Artificial general intelligence is not what we think it is, and it never will be. There's a lot of scientists these days that think, no, it's impossible. Because to artificially do it, we'd need every person on the planet. You see what I'm getting at? This is why I'm so disappointed that so many people are rejecting it. It's not a depopulation agenda per se. It's just that those that survive it will be in the worst hell imaginable. Essentially a living automaton. You can see through your own eyes, but have no control of your actions. You can't scream, you can't shout, you can't protest. All you can do is sit and watch what's happening. And that is the fate of humanity that they're looking for. They don't give a fuck about us, they don't care. We're cattle at the end of the day. And this is how they treat them. We can either go like lambs to the slaughter, or we can become a slave for eternity. You see, this is another thing. Once you take that jab, you signed a contract of sorts. Everything, remember when I said everything's about consent? You're legally, from that point, not exactly human anymore. Right? Now, there is loopholes that can get around this, right, in a legal sense. Not a lawful sense, but a legal sense. But your children that are born after your jab, if you can indeed have them still, right? Some people can. Those children then belong to the pharma company automatically. It's all to do with you having a patented product inside you, right? Because that's what you've done. A genetic level. It's a bit like the GMOs. I have mentioned this before as well, right? You are then owned by the pharma company whose jab you took. But when your children are born, paradoxically, they are naturally born with an artificial patented product inside them. So they become an originator then, an originator of that product line. So you're not just signing your own life away, you're signing away the lives of your entire lineage from that day forward. You are no longer a sovereign being, you are now owned by a company and not just in a legal sense, in a physical and spiritual sense as well. You immediately become a jar of pickles, believe it or not. And more for you that took the jab without even looking into it first. I'm starting to get less and less sympathy. This is the simple fact of all the actual idiot gerbils that are actually perpetuating this nonsense. But that's a tale for another time. So yeah, like I said, by now there should be a drop on the drops page about AI. Lots and lots of information, books, government papers on AI and general intelligence, lots of papers on why they think general intelligence will come about, why they think general intelligence won't come about, both sides of the argument. There's already a quantum computing drop already on my page, so I advise looking at that as well. So homework, guys, yeah, I'm watching you in the back as well. Right, this will next time we're really going to take a deep dive, a really deep dive, and look at the companies that are implementing it and the pseudo-religious aspects of it. I think that's probably best. Oh, and Chani Project, I'll put Chani Project down there as well in the description of this video, plus Thoth as well for the umpteenth time, just in case you don't know what I'm on about with that. It's enlightening stuff. If you've been watching my videos and not read that, shame on you, go and read it. It's the only thing I've read where it resonates in a different way and on a different level every single time I read it. Because of the way it's done. It's crazy shit. Anyway, like, share, subscribe, you know the drill. See you later.